So, from this point on, there's about 2 weeks till Election Day. Now, I want you to notice something. This news story came from Yahoo, and on Yahoo, they had a picture of a bunch of these old white men. But when I shared it to Facebook, it popped up with Trump's picture instead of the old white men that were on the picture that I saw on Yahoo on the main page. So obviously, with this subject, it says their America is vanishing. Like Trump, they insist they were cheated. So they switched it over to a Trump thing when originally, when you push on this picture, originally they showed a bunch of these people. I don't even see the photo that they use anymore. So basically what they do is they do like a bait and switch. But Yahoo is really, really dirty because what they used to do since COVID and pandemic, what they had done was they turned off the comments because they knew that every single story they posted, people were going to be posting comments that they didn't like. So what they did was they turned off the comments and they made it so that you couldn't post comments. Now they have a new bot system that automatically flags certain comments and somebody reviews it to see whether or not they like it. And then if they don't like it, they just reject it. But it's all bullshit, fake news anyway. I read it anyway because I like to be able to poke fun at it and I like to be able to criticize it in the way that I do. So anyway, it says their America is vanishing. Like Trump, they insist they were cheated. Okay. When Representative Troy Nehls of Texas voted last year to reject Donald Trump's electoral defeat, many of his constituents back home in Fort Bend County were thrilled. Really? Okay, like the former president, they have been unhappy with the changes unfolding around them. Crime and sprawl from Houston, the big city next door, have been spilling over into their once bucolic towns. Build a wall, Niels likes to say, make Houston pay. The county in recent years has become one of the nation's most diverse, where the former white majority has fallen to just 30% of the population. Okay. Don Demmel, a 61-year-old salesman who turned out last month to pick up a signed copy of a book by Nehls about the supposedly stolen election, said his parents had raised him colorblind. But the reason for the discontent was clear. Other white people in Fort Bend did not like certain people coming here. He said, it's race. They are old school. A shrinking white share of the population is a hallmark of the congressional districts held by the House Republicans who voted to challenge Trump's defeat. A New York Times analysis found a pattern political scientists say shows how white fear is losing status shaped the movement to keep him in power. Okay. The portion of white residents dropped about 35% more over the past 3 decades in those districts than in territory represented by other Republicans. The analysis found, and constituents also lagged behind in income and education. Rates of so-called deaths of despair, so they're basically talking about people committing suicide. Well, yeah, because it even says it. It says such as suicide, drug overdose, and alcohol-related liver failure were notably higher as well. They're probably talking about fentanyl. Although overshadowed by the assault on the Although overshadowed by the assault on the Capitol on January 6, 2021, the House vote that day was the most consequential of Trump's ploys to overturn the election. It cast doubt on the central ritual of American democracy, galvanized the party's grassroots around the myth of a stolen victory, and set a precedent that legal experts and some Republican lawmakers warned could perpetually embroil Congress in choosing a president. Now, first of all, for anybody who feels the election was stolen and for anybody who feels there were shenanigans, you have every right to feel that way. And let me be the first to say it. First of all, I've paid enough attention to science fiction and to Orwellian dystopia to recognize all of the signs that you're being either goaded into a certain direction or It's hard to explain, and I'm pretty sure somebody could come up with better words, but it's basically like this. I've paid enough attention to science fiction and all these dystopian novels, as well as World War II, to see that when they want to take over something, especially if they're talking about like a coup in a government, I think back to the Tom Cruise movie, Valkyrie. So basically, you had Tom Cruise, and he was playing von Stauffenberg, and he was basically he was a Nazi soldier, and he lost his hand and everything because there was an attack and he got bombed and everything, and he basically became disenchanted with the war effort. So basically, Operation Valkyrie, they came up with the idea to get rid of Hitler, remove Hitler out of power. The issue was that they knew that Hitler had a succession of government, and that the SS was going to take over the Nazi war machine if Hitler was killed. So basically, the majority of the movie was about, first of all, we've got to kill Hitler, yes, but what do we do when he's gone? How do we stop the next Hitler from rising up, or how do we stop these next people from coming up and taking over? Because I think by that time they realized that between the Russians and the Americans, they were done for. So the reality was most of the movie focused on how would they control the media? How would they shut down the dissent? How would they be able to stop the next person from coming up and being able to claim that they were the new chancellor, unless it was somebody who they knew that they could trust to put an end to the war with the Americans and with the Russians? So, long story short, if you haven't seen the movie, I love watching that movie. The movie's brilliant, and I like the way they laid it out. It actually made me go and look up all the actual history about it. But long story short, they had this set. I'll never know. We'll never ever know, because there's lots of conspiracies. We'll never ever know if COVID was a conspiracy. You'll never know whether or not China sent that over here on purpose, or whether or not it was an accident and it just got out. You'll never know that for sure. But one thing's for certain. You know that saying they say, never let a crisis go to waste? Well, the Democrats sure as fuck didn't let a crisis go to waste. It was as if they were determined to make things as miserable as possible inside Democrat states as possible. And I think that the only thing that stopped them from taking it further was that at a certain point, you had a lot of people who said, no, we're not going to do this anymore. You had people lined up. And I made videos about it. You had people lined up around gun stores. You had people buying up ammo. You had people buying out the gun stores. Like, they were buying anything they could get. If they could get a 22 caliber rifle, they were buying it. If they could only get a 22 caliber pistol, they were buying it. And the point was, it was like at a certain because see, these people basically said, no, I'm not taking this no more. And I think what also got to them was when they were watching the crime that was happening, when they were watching people breaking into stores, like store after store, just breaking into stores and robbing and looting. I guess people at a certain point, they were like, you know what, these motherfuckers might do this shit to my house. And so they said, no, fuck that. I'm going out and buying as much ammo as I can possibly buy and as many guns as I can possibly buy. And I'm watching this shit really, really believing that, there was a very good possibility you could have had a damn civil war. Because the issue was, with them in control of the media, let's say somebody did bust in your house and you killed them. Depending upon what the dynamics were, that could have ended up being a riot right on your block against you. That could have ended up being your house burning down. That could have ended up being just about anything. So the issue ultimately is, when you've got certain people, technocrats, in control of the media, and that's one of the reasons I never liked Facebook. And I was always worried that this would happen. The things that we've seen happen with Facebook would happen. When you see technocrats, and they all have the ability to shut down free speech, and they have now, and granted, I've said a million times that when you get on these platforms, it's not free. Okay, I understand that. But when they have the ability to shut these things down simultaneously and make it so you can't talk on anything, that right there tells you that there's a serious problem. And now you got Elon Musk talking about buying Twitter, and you got fucking, Kanye West talking about buying something, Truth Social or whatever. As crazy as these people sound, I actually applaud it. Because, first of all, I'm an old school Darwinian. I believe in Darwinist theory, and I believe in survival of the fittest, and I believe that conflict theorism, they call it. I believe that growth comes from conflict. I just believe it. Whether you believe it or not, I don't really care. I just believe it. So, bottom line is, it's like I actually look forward to the challengers. Like right now, TikTok is kicking Facebook's ass. TikTok is kicking Twitter's ass. TikTok is kicking YouTube's ass to the point where YouTube had to change like their entire business model. So, me personally, I like the challenges because the challenges make it so that the incumbent never can get comfortable, and they have to keep on reviving and making the product better. So, for saying certain things on Facebook, they used to just kick you off for 30 days. Now that TikTok's kicking their ass, the things that used to just get you a 30-day ban, oh no, now what they do is they reduce your news feeds and they make it so anything you post, it takes time for everybody else to see it and everything. And then they stop you from going live, and they do other things. They make it so you can't make posts for a certain period of time, and you can't go live, and your advertisements don't work. And the thing about it is, when you're dealing with these technocrats like this, that right there is some shit that I don't even think George Orwell could have seen that far. Because see, the social media cell phone thing, that started in 2007. I doubt that George Orwell could have seen that we'd have iPhone in 2007, and by 2009 you'd have everybody literally walking around with a 720p camera in their pocket, or a few years later walking around with a 4K camera in their pocket and being able to record everything. You know, police, like I remember I used to use this analogy all the time. I used to watch Cops, and there was never shootings on Cops. And I watched Cops for years. I watched Cops for like 20 years. Bad boys, what you gonna do? And I watched Cops, and then I would watch Real Stories of the Highway Patrol. I watched that shit for years. That was my favorite show. There was never any shootings on it. Now, everybody's walking around with a 4K camera. As soon as the cops pull somebody over, as soon as the cops have to start interacting with somebody, people are recording. And you're getting all of these shootings. You're getting all of these crimes happening on 4K. You're getting these cops attacked in fucking camera feeds in 4K. So I don't think George Orwell could have ever predicted this. He couldn't have, because it's so out there that it's like, it's something you couldn't predict. It would have to be in a sci-fi novel, because you couldn't predict that this could happen this way. You couldn't predict that you'd have children going to school, walking around with a 4K camera in their pocket, playing video games all fucking day on the internet with somebody on the other side of the world. You never could have imagined that. But I digress. So anyway, what they're saying is, to understand the social forces converging in that historic vote, objecting to the Electoral College count, the Times examined the constituencies of the lawmakers who joined the effort, analyzing census and other data from congressional districts and interviewing scores of residents and local officials. The Times previously revealed the backroom maneuvers inside the House, including convincing lawmakers that they could reject the results. See, here's the problem. First of all, I know that there's a constitutional procedure in the Electoral College for denouncing or saying that there's something wrong with the system, or there's something wrong with the votes. And that's why all of those confirmations, they rush through that as fast as possible. And I'll go on to say this. I think January 6th, I think those people going on January 6th and marching, I think that was a mistake. Because, see, if you really think about it, if you look at it in hindsight, when those people marched on the Capitol and those people went into the Capitol and they did their so-called insurrection, if you want to call it that, fine, whatever, because they were never going to be able to take over the government. But what ended up happening is, all that had to happen was that when those people were actually confirming the votes, once those people outside started marching on the Congress and coming into the Congress and invading the Congress, basically it shut down all of the dissent. It was almost as if they wanted something to happen just because they knew that the dissent could be shut down that way. It's like if you know, like imagine like if you know that something crazy is going to happen and you're looking for any way to avoid that craziness from happening. So what you do is you allow something to happen out of the normal that can distract everybody. But I'm going too far because all somebody's going to do is say that's conspiracy theory. But the bottom line is that's exactly what happened. It's like, it's not even a theory. It happened. It's like a fact. So many of the 139 objectors, think about this. There was 139 objectors. After the invasion on the Capitol, or after the insurrection on the Capitol, whatever you want to call it, all of those objectors were basically silenced. And it was just confirmed, and that was it. So that's just what it is. Including Nels said that they were driven in part by the demands of their voters. You sent me to Congress to fight for President Trump and election integrity. Nels wrote in a tweet on January 5th, 2021, and that's exactly what I'm doing. At a Republican caucus meeting a few days later, Republican Bill Johnson from an Ohio district stretching into Appalachia told colleagues that his constituents would go ballistic with raging fire if he broke with Trump, according to a recording. Certain districts primarily reflect either the racial or socioeconomic characteristics, but the typical objector district shows both, a fact demographers said was striking. No, it's not striking. See, what the Democrats want you to believe is that everyone who has black skin or everybody who has Hispanic speech or everybody who's Latino or Latina, they want you to believe that all of these people are about to vote for the Democrats. The reality is that ain't true. And now we know it because now you have enough dissent coming out and being able to say, no, I'm not voting for you. And then they're able to talk about why. So it's not striking to me. It's just like when I think about what's going down on Georgia right now. I'm pretty sure there's a whole lot of blacks who are backing Herschel Walker, and they don't care what he sounds like. They just want the Democrats out. It's just like right now. I've got an election coming up, Zeldin versus Hochul. I'm voting Zeldin. And to be perfectly honest, I don't even know his entire platform. I just know that I don't want Hochul. Chances are Hochul's probably going to win, but then again, anything can happen on a given Sunday. From what I've seen of Zeldin, it's like he hasn't said anything I don't like. You know, he's not for raising taxes. He's definitely not for disconnecting fucking apartment buildings from gas lines like Hochul wants to do. So I'm down with Zeldin, and that's just it. I'll vote that way just because he's not the other guy. And when you get to politics that are that binary and that polarizing, that's really dangerous. And again, it is representative democracy. It's just that that's really, really disgusting and it's dangerous what the country has come to when you get to polarizing politics like that. I just saw an ad about Zeldin a little while ago about Zeldin. Oh, Zeldin's anti-abortion. He would stop you from getting your money. And I'm like, well, first of all, I don't give a fuck about abortion, number one. And number two, that's not something that I'm going to vote on that's not my swing issue. That's not going to make me change my mind. Like if you said, oh, Zeldin's about to raise your taxes by fucking $3,000 a year. Now you've got my attention. Now you got my attention. There you go. No, fuck that. I got to vote for the other guy. Or if you said that Zeldin's going to make Desert Eagles illegal in New York State. Nope. Can't vote for him. So bottom line is, at the end of the day, most people are going to vote with their pockets. And what we saw here was we saw the worst miscarriage of justice in the history of the United States. And the way the voting was done, the way the votes were counted, everything connected to the presidential election of 2020. Everything even remotely connected to it was shady. Everything. Every single thing. It was funny because even in the videos that I made about the election, I went to sleep that night thinking Trump had won. I woke up to a Biden fucking landslide. I was like, what? But they pulled it off. And then they made it so you couldn't even talk about it. They made it, literally, think about that. They made it so you couldn't talk about it. They made it so you couldn't say there's something wrong. They made it so you couldn't denounce it. They made it so that every single outlet where you would say something, like for instance, if I post some shit on Facebook right now, unless Facebook totally agrees with it, they're going to automatically, there's a fact check button. And something just pops up and says, yeah, that's not completely. Now, I've posted memes which aren't true at all. They're fucking jokes. And the fact checkers come up. That's what technocrats have done. So when you tell me that Kanye West, let me tell you something. I don't give a fuck what Kanye West says. He can talk. He can talk all the shit he wants. I'm not buying his sneakers. I'm not buying any of his clothing. I think all of his shit is ugly. I don't want any of it. But the thing about it is, if he wants to buy one of these media networks, and he's got that kind of money to buy a media network so that he can talk all the shit that he wants to talk all fucking day long, and anybody who is down with him can talk shit on his channel and they can say whatever they want, I've got no problem with that. In fact, that's fantastic. If Elon Musk wants to continue to ignore putting better interiors in these stupid Teslas, and he wants to be busy trying to buy Twitter, no problem. Because I do realize that if Elon Musk buys Twitter and he makes it a free platform where anybody can say whatever they want for the most part, it's just one more nail in Zuckerberg's coffin. It's just one more nail in Facebook Meta's coffin. It's just one more nail in Twitter. So I ain't got a problem with it. In fact, I've said that for a long time. I'm like, listen, if you're conservative and you've got that kind of money, stop fucking arguing with these liberals and stop whining. Buy something. I mean, Kanye West, he's annoying as fuck, but he's not crazy. I know he's not crazy because of just the things he's doing. So my thing is, yeah, he's annoying. He's an attention whore, but I appreciate what he's doing. If he I wish he'd buy Twitter. Elon Musk gonna buy Twitter? Fine. Kanye West, I wish he had the money. He could buy, I don't know, whatever. Whatever he wants to buy. Whatever it takes to allow dissent in the media instead of allowing these technocrats to sandwich shit up so that they can make it so you can't say what you're thinking. So, because the bottom line is, this is all free speech and free market, too. If people don't like what I'm saying, turn your fucking channel. That's it. If you don't like, some people say, oh, yeah, but you curse too much. Turn the fucking channel. I don't care. It's like, whatever I'm saying it that way. That's called freedom of expression. First Amendment. And then there's these other people in these other shitty countries out there, and they don't like the things you say. They don't like the things you do. They think that there should be restrictions on me. Like, for instance, I've got people criticize me about going out and buying certain guns that I wanted to buy. Hey, guess what, loser? You live in fucking Australia. You can't buy what I buy. Or you live in UK. All you can buy is those stupid knives. And I've got knives too, but you can just buy knives. It's like, guess what? You don't have freedom. I do. That's it. If you have a problem with it, either get your passport and move or shut the fuck up. It's just that simple. So, let's see. Certain districts primarily reflect either the racial or... Okay, I already read that. Because they are more vulnerable, disadvantaged, or less educated white voters can feel especially endangered by the trend towards a minority majority, said Ashley Hardenia. I guess it's Hardenia instead of Jardenia. I don't know. A political scientist at George Mason University who studies the attitudes of those voters. Now, you already know. I've already said it. Now, see, basically on these white media stations, they've been talking about what they call replacement theory. I said, no. It's not replacement theory. It's replacement fact. You're being replaced. If watching those bus, you know what the sad thing is? The sad thing is the media is so polarizing that while you're watching busloads of immigrants being shipped from like Texas and Florida up here to New York, you're laughing at it because you consider it a trolling thing where they're trolling us in New York. But guess what? Those people ain't leaving. Those people are going to be given welfare. Though our taxes, right now, there's another story I may read. California's raising taxes. It was in the New York Times. They're raising taxes to pay for the homeless. A lot of the homeless are illegal aliens. So while I just want you to think about this. Let's say that you're a conservative. Let's say you hate liberals. Let's say you hate the left. But I want you to understand something. This is chess moves. While you're busy laughing at New York and you're busy laughing at California, I want you to understand something. They're letting more and more and more illegal aliens in. They are financing them using the tax dollars, federal tax dollars you pay and I pay. And you are slowly being replaced. And that's not a theory, that's just what's happening. So while these people are laughing about it, I'm like, wait a minute, those people ain't leaving though. Those people are going to stay right here and have families and this, that, and other. They're replacing us. I pointed out, the manospheres pointed it out, between the abortions, the failed marriages, the broken homes. I pointed out the last census. Whites have fallen behind. Blacks only move forward just a little. Hispanics and Asians move forward the most. Now, that's what the 2020 census said. And I pointed that out in another video I made, but unfortunately, since YouTube doesn't want you to be able to link videos, I can't simply like put a card or a link or whatever to the video. I have to put in a URL or something. But they took that away because they want to have full control over the recommendeds. So they want to be able to force you into certain directions, whatever. It's like, I've pretty much almost had it. It's almost easier to make money slinging dope or something. But what else? Where am I? Many of the ejectors districts started with a significantly larger black minority or had a rapid increase in the Hispanic population, making the decline in the white population more pronounced. Of the 12 Republican-held districts that swung to minority white, almost all in California and Texas 10 were represented by objectors. The most significant drops occurred in the Dallas-Fort Worth suburbs and California district towns, where the white percentage fell by more than 1/3. Lawmakers who objected were also overrepresented among the 70 Republican-held districts, with the lowest percentage of college graduates. Yeah, they're basically saying you're not educated, you're stupid, you don't deserve to speak. That's basically what they're saying. Whenever you see them in any of these shitty journalist reports, whenever they bring up who's a college graduate and who's not, they're basically trying to say you're not educated. Because the odd thing about it is, chances are, let's say you didn't go to college, let's say you just went into vocational work, chances are you're probably less saddled by debt and you're probably moving further and faster than the person who went to college, because when they went to college, they just took out student loans. And chances are, while they may have a full liberal education and they can quote Shakespeare and shit, chances are you are the one who can actually work with your hands and build a fucking house using carpentry skills. Or you're an electrician or a plumber or something like that, and you didn't go to college, but you also didn't come out with $100,000 worth of debt either. Or like my dentist have $300,000 worth of debt. But that's what they're basically doing. It's very subtle how they do it, but it's like, whatever. While Nell's district exemplifies demographic change, Representative Morgan Griffiths in Southwest Virginia is among the poorest in the country. Once dominated by coal, manufacturing, and tobacco, the area's economic base eroded with competition from new energy sources and foreign importers. Doctors prescribe opioids to injured laborers, and an epidemic of addiction soon followed. Residents, roughly 90% of them white, gripe that the educated elites of the Northern Virginia suburbs think that the state stops at Roanoke. They take umbrage at what they consider condescension from outsiders who view their communities as poverty-stricken, and they bemoan PhD pollution from the big local university, Virginia Tech. After a long history of broken government promises, many said in interviews they had lost faith in the political process and public institutions. And let me say this before I even go on. Most of the people who are coming out to vote this November, they feel the same way. They've lost faith in political process and public institutions. They voted in who they thought would have been the best person for the job, and they found out they were sorely mistaken when gas prices hit fucking $7 a gallon, or when they suddenly went from a state of peace, making peace with North Korea, to a sudden brink of World War III with the next person they voted in. So I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure when they show up, there's definitely going to be some major changes. Some people believe there's going to be a red wave. I'd like to think that there will be, but I won't know what has happened until the next day. Because as I've said a million times, the real economy is going to show its face on November 9th. Not November, every day up until November 8th. You're just going to feel what you feel. But the real economy is going to show up November 9th. Once everybody's got their new seat and the people who got kicked out get kicked out, and there's nothing to lie about anymore, there's nothing to hide from, that's when you're going to see the reality. And mark my words, November 9th, that's when you're going to find out what it really is. In a bustling clinic called the Health Wagon in Griffiths District, they see low-income and uninsured patients with maladies from tooth decay and heart conditions and diabetes. Yeah, tooth decay is a motherfucker because I had in the last 15 years, I think I've had like 3 root canals. You know, but we have a poisonous diet of fucking soda and sugar. So what do you expect? Since the last election, they have often raised another complaint, the false claim that Democrats stole Trump's victory. Yeah, well, me personally, I don't think that's a false claim. Did you see that box of vote? Yeah, see, this is where. I'll tell you this. When they talk about people who've lost faith with the system, I'm not going to believe in the voting electoral system. I'm not going to believe in it until I get to design it. Because I'll design it where illegals don't vote, where dead people can't vote. I'll make it what's a good word? I'd make it so sophisticated there'd be almost no way to defraud it. And the thing about it is, you got these people, everybody, when somebody loses, automatically they start pointing fingers. Oh, but they suppressed our vote. Oh, they didn't let colored people vote. First of all, your biggest problem is that you've got blacks and Hispanics leaving the Democrat Party and going to the Republicans and openly saying that they're doing it. You see, that's your biggest problem now. It's not a simple skin color issue anymore. So, like for instance, I've got people in my family who'll be like, oh, yeah, well, they're trying to suppress your vote. I'm like, excuse me, I vote Republican. They're not trying to suppress my vote. They're trying to suppress yours. So, my thing is, it's not cut and dry anymore. It's like these people are conservative regardless of skin color. And more people are turning conservative because the Democrats have done a horrible job with crime and a horrible job of the economy. So, how could you go to that side? Those are racist. Those people are racist. It's like, listen, I just wish I could get on a huge megaphone and tell you, listen, they don't give a fuck. They're tired of your shit and they want you gone. They don't care what's on the other side. Trump's been called a racist 1 billion times. Trump's been, he cheats on his taxes. It's like, no, he doesn't. No, he paid enough of his taxes to keep the IRS off his ass, okay? But they believe what they hear repeated every day on The View and every day on Rachel Maddow and every day on Bill Maher and they tune into this shit and they're indoctrinated with it. Okay, it's not really much different than what you see on Fox News, because I have to say Fox News has some shitty fucking journalism. And I've pointed out MSNBC, CNN, and Fox. I don't watch any of them anymore. I get my news from foreign sources because at least I know that they ain't got no reason to lie. At least they'll tell you what's going on. You can put 2 and 2 together. You can do some of your own research. But American news is for the fucking bird cage. You just lie in your bird cage and let your bird shit all over it. But anyway, conditions like diabetes and heart disease overlap so often that health workers feel lucky when their patients can walk in the door. Damn, said Teresa Owens Tyson, a nurse practitioner. Let's go. Although not all are so hard-pressed, the districts of House objectors have similar disadvantages. Households there had nearly 10% less annual income in 2020 than those in Republican areas. Not only were college degrees less common, so were high school diplomas. The GOP's hold on those districts reflects its shift away from its former country club image to become the party of those left behind. So basically what they're saying is the GOP represents old white people who are dying out. That's what they're basically saying. Some residents said that their reasons for questioning the results should be obvious to anyone. The relatively small size of Biden's rallies, The overnight disappearance of Trump's yep, I mentioned that. The overnight disappearance of Trump's early lead as more votes were tallied. The allegations about stuffed ballot drop boxes. It's not a political thing, it's we love our country thing. Well, bottom line, people, until you nominate me to fucking fix this election system, you're just going to have to deal with distrust. And furthermore, they like it this way. Like, I don't know why people don't understand that. It's just like with taxes. I've argued that we should have a flat tax, not a fucking fair tax. That's bullshit. There's no such thing as a fair tax. When I walk into the store down the block, I pay as much tax as you do. I pay as much tax as you do. I have no idea who you are. I have no idea how much money you make. You have no idea how much money I make. When I walk in the store, I pay as much tax as you do. The exact same thing. There are some exceptions because of people who are walking around with tax exemptions, like from the church and shit. But for the most part, if you and I go to the store right now, we buy something, we're going to pay the same amount of tax if we buy it in the same place. Some states have different taxes, some states don't. But what is it? I think out here I think it's like 9.7 or something, and it's like 8.625 in another part. Bottom line is, ain't no such thing as a fair tax. That's a flat tax. If I go into Walmart, you go into the same Walmart, we're paying the same tax. That's a flat tax. Progressive income tax is evil. Progressive income tax punishes you for working harder. Progressive income tax grows an already too big to fail government, which is basically nothing more than a welfare state at this point. Progressive income tax is evil. If I make $100,000 a year and the next person works harder than me or has a better job and makes $200,000 a year, both of our tax rates should be the exact same thing. He should be paying the exact same thing I'm paying. And the reason why they don't want you knowing what I pay, the reason why they don't want me knowing what you pay is because they want that fog of deniability. They want that. Like, for example, it's like I mentioned on this when I'm doing my podcasting, I guess you could call it that. Corporations don't pay tax at all. And it took me a long time to understand it. But corporations don't pay tax. Shareholders pay tax. Consumers of the products pay tax. Workers pay tax. Those three entities pay tax. Corporations don't pay tax. If I'm Apple and you raise taxes, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to raise the price of my fucking iPhone, and you're still going to pay it. If I'm Apple and you raise the tax, I'm going to raise the price of Apple Watch, and you still going to pay it. I'm going to raise the price of iPad. I'm going to raise the price of this. I'm going to raise the price of that. I'll make it so that lightning cables are $20 fucking each, and you'll pay it. That's it. You're paying that tax. What do they say? It gets passed down to the consumer. Corporations don't pay tax. Shareholders pay tax, the people who buy the stock. Consumers pay tax, workers pay tax. If we had flat taxing across the board, things would change in this country. But they'll never allow that shit to happen. Do you think they'd be able to run up fucking $1 trillion deficits if we had a flat tax? Fuck no, they wouldn't. Do you think they'd be able to hand Ukraine $40 billion and then turn around and I should say threaten to send another $50 billion over there with a flat fucking tax? No. Do you think they'd be able to bus in immigrants and send them all over America wherever they feel like? So basically, the rest of this article specifically goes out to talk about changing demographics. So the bottom line is, it's like, I've said this before, because it's really not just whites that are getting replaced. It's also blacks too. Blacks are not having enough children. Because you got to remember, at the end of the day, the state doesn't give a shit what color you are. The health of the state is live births. They are ultimately letting people in who they know are going to have large families. They want people to come in and have 6 and 7 kids. Oh, well, if they run out of money, more taxes will just pay for it. That's how they operate. And it's sad because it's so obvious at this point that that's exactly what they're doing. But bottom line is, it's like, this is just what you got to deal with. And unless you people show up and you people vote the way that they don't want you to vote, but if you vote, you can make the difference right now. Neil said election fraud was the only thing that could stop the greatest leader of my lifetime from returning to the Oval Office in 2024. Well, it's not just election fraud at this point, because the reality is they've made it a point that they're going to poison the well as much as possible. They absolutely do not want Trump coming back. In fact, the British Prime Minister, what was her name? Truss, she's out. There's a new guy who's in, and supposedly Boris Johnson had enough votes where he himself could have stepped back in, but he said he just doesn't want it. So some people are saying that's his admission that he doesn't know how to govern or whatever it is. But the reality is, he's basically saying, he's like, listen, I just don't want to deal with it, and that's just what it is. So it's like, either you accept that or not, but that's just what it is. He's saying, I don't want to deal with this nonsense. So it's not just Trump. These people have made it a point that any right wing representative at all, they absolutely are against them automatically. The news media is pretty much moved so far to the left that at this point it's all ultra liberal for the most part. So there's not really much you can do about that, except you can vote. Because the thing about it is, voting caused Trump to be in office in the first place. Voting put the biggest upset that anybody could have ever imagined on Hillary, and she ain't never going to forget that upset. So the reality is, when some people say voting doesn't matter, no, that's not true at all. Voting absolutely does work. The problem is, unless, you're able to be vigilant with voting, it's like, the next election, somebody could come and just fuck up everything that you voted for the first time. So the reality is, it's like, no, voting does work, but you have to come out in November and you got to vote for what you. All I'm going to say is this: vote your pocket. Vote your pocket. If you know that you're not happy with what they've put in front of you, then vote that way. That's all. What even Obama said himself. Obama said, "Don't boo, vote." That's wise words, regardless what side of the spectrum you're on. Those are wise words. Don't boo, vote. If you don't like what you're getting, then all you got to do is show up and vote. Because short of you doing that, there's really not much you're going to be able to do to deal with this insanity that they've got going on. And they're going to, and you best believe they're going to keep it going. They're never going to stop. They are never going to stop. The shit that they got running right now, they ain't never going to stop. They're going to keep it going. Every bad thing that you can't stand that they're doing, they're going to keep doing it. And they're going to keep going until you take them out of office. The democratic way. Even though this is a republic, you got to do it the democratic way. Says in a fair election, you can't beat Donald Trump. No, that's not true. In a fair election, you could beat him. It just would have been really fucking hard without COVID, wouldn't it? Where are we? He saw no fear of demographic change among his supporters, he said. These people aren't against brown or black people. They just don't like the way Democrats are running the country. Let me tell you something. Personally, I like the way things are moving. I like the direction that things are headed in. I am not happy with the economy at all. I'm not happy with the state of things. And one thing I understand is, in order for you to force change, sometimes you have to take what you have and you have to destroy it. Sometimes you have to break it. You can't make something new if you don't break what's old. They are never going to have a constitutional convention to fix problems in the Constitution because the Republicans don't want it, the Democrats don't want it. What the last thing they want is to open up the books. They don't want to do that because if you open up the books, everybody will be screaming. You'll have these abortion gendered leftists screaming, demanding that abortion be made into a right, which it's not. Then you'll have the gun control advocates demanding we take away AR-15s by making an amendment, which they can't. So, no, it's obvious to me that things are going to be fucked up for a long time, specifically because nobody wants to open the books. And, I understand that. So what you have is the Democrats trying to impose ad hoc law, and they try to get away with shit because they know you don't know your own laws and they know you're not a lawyer. So what they do is they impose ad hoc law. Like, for example, the Supreme Court just struck down all of these unconstitutional weapon bans that they had. All these unconstitutional concealed carry bans. Now, granted, the state does have some rights, but they don't have the right in many cases to tell you that you can't have a weapon. Now, they can, to some extent, I think they have the ability to decide what weapons you can and can't have. But they've literally made it so you can't arm yourself and you can't defend yourself. That's unconstitutional because of the Second Amendment, period. It just is. Now, I know there's some stupid fucking asshole that wants to argue, yeah, but it said a well-regulated militia and the comma was over here and this, that, and that. Listen, all that bullshit ends when I put these rounds in this Desert Eagle right here. All that bullshit you talking ends when I'm loading up this AR-15 right here. I don't give a fuck what you got to say. If you don't like it, move to England or Australia. I don't care. But my rights are not up for debate or discussion. My rights are just not. They're just not. So that said, personally, it's like I understand they don't want to open the books. I understand why they don't want to open the books. I don't foresee them ever opening up the books anytime soon. So that's just what it is. But the reality is these people, this whole article that they put forward here was basically just a replacement theory, replacement fear. I guess you could call it a debunker. But for the most part, it didn't debunk anything. There's not enough here to actually really say anything. This is shoddy journalism pushed forward to piss people off on one side and to rally people on the other side. Because it's funny, there's a lot of people, especially colored people, Latino, Black, who don't want to vote Democrat and they want to vote conservative Republican. They're not talking about that. And the sad thing is, the day after the election's over, if there's a red wave, all you're going to see is all these studies. Oh, man, why didn't you vote this way? Why didn't you vote that way? You're going to have everybody on these shitty talk show channels going crazy. Oh, yeah, well, if y'all just showed up to vote, Hillary would have won. It's like, listen. The reason why they didn't show up to vote is that they did vote. They voted with their feet. They voted by not showing up. See, that's what nobody wants to talk about. They want you to show up because they hope that you're going to have a change of heart and that you're going to say, oh, man, well, she's not as bad as I thought she was, so I'm just going to hold my nose and vote for her. Fuck that. Those days are over. You're dealing with a brand new generation. You're dealing with this Generation Z. Soon you're going to be dealing with Generation Alpha, and they'll be of legal age to vote. And they're not loyal to any. They're not going to be loyal to people who they don't think are loyal to them, and it's just that simple. So that's just the bottom line. It's like they're the one group, this Generation Z and these Generation Alphas, who I can say they're not gonna have it. They are not gonna have it. If they think that you're not helping them, they're not going for it. They're not going for it. So you can come up with all the race theory and all that shit that you want to come up with. You can be on Sirius XM screaming your head off about how these people are unloyal and this, that. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. So I hope that we get a huge change in leadership come this November. Again, it's 2 weeks away. Today is the 24th. We got about 2 weeks. 2 weeks, give or take. In fact, let me look at this calendar. Yeah. Okay, so there's this week. Okay, it's a little bit more than... Okay, I'll say it's a little bit more than 2 weeks. Oh, no, you know what? Wait, where am I? I'm on the 24th. The November 8th election is on a Tuesday. Oh, okay. So yeah, there's a little bit more than a full 2 weeks. It's like 2 weeks and 2 days, basically. So all I can say is, yeah, I hope y'all show up to vote. And I hope all I'm going to say is vote with your wallet. That's all. If you feel that the people who are there are spending your money with your best interests in mind, if you think that the people who are there are taxing you with your best interests in mind, if you think that the people who are there are keeping your community safe and they have your best, all I'm going to say is vote that way. I can tell you that these Asian Americans ain't going to vote the way they want them to vote because I think they're getting tired of not being protected by these people. I think people who ride the train are getting tired of having shit smeared in their faces or being pushed on the tracks. I think people who buy SRT products are tired of waking up to stolen rims and having their cars carjacked. I think women are in general worried about the mental ill being let out on the streets to run amok. I think men in general are worried about the mental ill being let out on the streets to run amok. So the bottom line is, I ain't even going to belabor this no more. Get in there, vote, and vote the way you want to vote. And if you so decide not to show up because you're that disgusted with both sides, I ain't got nothing to say. If that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. But me personally, I don't sit out the elections. When I show up to those polls, I show up with furious hatred and anger. And the person who I have projected that to is the person who I'm voting against one way or another. Like, I will actually see it. This whole thing about mail-in voting, Americans are already lazy as fuck, in my opinion. I don't believe in mail-in voting. Now, I understand that there's people overseas, there's soldiers who can't be here. I understand all that. I understand that there's old folks who are, broken down, their bodies they can't get up. Okay, I understand all that. But for me personally, as long as I can conjure up enough anger and hatred to get up out my bed and to have to sit through this fucking traffic that because of your short-sighted policies I have to deal with, no, you can bet that I'm going to show up. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there to show up and vote the way I want to vote. And that's all I'm asking you to do. If you hate both sides, pick the side that you hate the least and show up to vote. And if you really don't want to vote at all, just remember, if you don't vote at all, you're basically voting for whoever wins for the most part. So that's all I got to say. This is shoddy journalism at its worst. Typical Yahoo News. I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed. I don't know who taught you people to be journalists. I don't know. You must have brought up a lot of student debt and for no good reason. But that's just what it is. So all that said, I'm pretty much done. So you can let me know in the comments how you feel about it, because I already pretty much let you know how I feel about it.